You can have the breakthrough, see the pattern, know the truth, and still not transform. Because recognition can feel like change long before your life has actually changed. You know the relationship is complete. You know the boundary is needed. You know the work no longer fits. You know you're making yourself smaller. You know you're carrying something that is no longer yours. And still, you stay, you accommodate, you postpone, you keep living inside the old reality. Not because you failed to recognize the truth, you already did. And this is the threshold I want to take you into today. Recognition is not the same as transformation. Recognition shows you what is true. Transformation begins when your life becomes coherent with that truth. And there can be a very uncomfortable space between those two. Because once you have truly seen something, you cannot completely unsee it. You can delay, you can rationalize it, you can tell yourself that timing is not right, you can continue to inhabit what is familiar. But somewhere inside you, the truth remains quiet, clear, unmoved. Perhaps there is something in your life right now that you no longer need to understand. You already understand it very well. Perhaps you know a chapter has ended. Perhaps you know a relationship has changed its nature. Perhaps you know your work wants another form. Perhaps you know you're no longer available for the role you have been playing for so long. Perhaps your soul has already moved while your life has not yet followed. And this is where recognition becomes a threshold, because truth does not always ask you to understand more. Sometimes truth asks you to stop pretending that you do not already know. Sometimes it asks you to let something end. Sometimes it asks you to speak up. Sometimes it asks you to stop carrying. And sometimes it asks you to release an identity that once made perfect sense. And that is where the movement becomes real. Because recognition can remain private for a while. Transformation changes things in the physical world. It changes what you choose, what you allow, what you continue, what you end, what you're willing to be seen as. And sometimes that is exactly why we remain at recognition. We say, I know, I see it, I understand. But underneath that knowing, there may still be something we are protecting, a relationship, a role, a sense of belonging, a version of ourselves that has carried us for a very long time. So let me ask you something. What are you still protecting by not living what you already know? Stay there, not in judgment, just notice. What remains intact if you do not move? Which expectation continues to be fulfilled? Which role survives? And which version of you gets to remain in place? And now go deeper. What if that version of you has already completed? What if the discomfort you feel is not telling you that you need another answer? What if the answer has already arrived? And what you're experiencing is the tension between recognition and embodiment. That is a very different place. Because now you are no longer waiting for clarity. You are now standing inside clarity. And clarity is beginning to ask something of you. This is where soul alchemy begins. Not with another explanation of the pattern, not with another layer of analysis, but with a deeper question. Who are you when you stop organizing your life around what has already completed? Who are you when you stop negotiating with what your soul already knows to be true? Who you are when truth is allowed to become embodiment. At some point, the center of gravity changes. You are no longer primarily looking at what shaped you. You begin to become available for what came here through you. Your soul, your sacred soul design, and ultimately your oversoul. Imagine the orchestra again. Your soul knows its instrument, it knows its part, and your oversoul, the divine architect, holds the whole orchestra together and knows the entire symphony. Recognition may give you a glimpse of that deeper truth. Embodiment asks you to live from it through your choices you make on a daily basis, through your voice, through your relationships, through your work, through the way you inhabit your life. And this is where transformation becomes visible, not because you understood more, but because the contradiction ends. What you know and how you live begin to become one. It's whole now. An O becomes an O. A completed chapter is allowed to end. Your truth no longer has to be softened to preserve an older structure. You stop arranging your life around an identity you have already outgrown. And what was once only inner knowing begins to take form in the physical world. This is embodiment. And sometimes embodiment requires a death, not drama, completion. The ending of an identity that cannot accompany you into what comes next. Recognition may tell you this is over. Transformation allows it to end. Recognition may show you this is who I am. Transformation allows you to live from it. Recognition may give you a glimpse of your soul. Soul alchemy creates the passage, the sacred passage through which that deeper truth can take form. And ultimately, this is the movement toward oversoul embodiment. From sensing the deeper design to becoming available for it. From knowing to living. From recognition to embodiment. So I want you to leave with one question. What truth have you already recognized that your life has not yet fully honored? And then one level deeper, what would need to complete for your life to become coherent with that truth? Do not turn this into another project. Do not search for 5 steps. Just notice. Because perhaps you're not waiting for another revelation. Perhaps the revelation has already happened. And perhaps the threshold you're standing at now is the one between recognition and embodiment. That is one of the thresholds held inside a soul alchemy temple. a private 12-month rite of passage into Oversoul embodiment for those who already understand the much, who have already recognized a lot, who have already done substantial inner work, and who know that another insight is no longer the depth they require. Because recognition shows you what is true. Transformation allows your life to become coherent with that truth. And soul alchemy takes you across that threshold from knowing to becoming, from recognition into embodiment, from a life organized by what has been into a life organized by what you came here to do.